I'm wondering, based on what you heard there from the president, if you're concerned that he is turning away once again from Volodymyr Zelensky.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, well, let's see what happens. I think it's quite clear that Russia's Putin is quite impressed by what's going on at this moment. He admires President Trump. He admires basically the military power that the US can project. But at the same time, he's the one really despising the American way of life, I would say the European way of life as well, which grants freedom to all individuals. And this is ultimately what the Ukrainian people want to achieve as well. And the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, he is liable to his own people. And a peace deal which the Ukrainians wouldn't accept is obviously not something that he will digest easily.
Sure. President Zelensky talked about this moment and the support that he says he needs from Europe and the United States earlier today. Let's listen to what he said.
Things which are very important for today, I think unity between Europe and Ukraine, and also unity between Europe, Ukraine, and the United States. There are some things which we can't manage without Americans, things which we can't manage without Europe, and that's why we need to make some important decisions.
If you're having trouble hearing us on the radio, Zelensky saying there are some things which we cannot manage without Americans, things we cannot manage without Europe. So that said, Minister, I'm curious your thoughts about the administration's national security strategy that argues that Europe's cultural and political failures like immigration and censorship pose a threat to the continent's way of life. What do you make of the president's posture towards Europe?
Well, first of all, the European countries are democracies, and in our constituencies, our people decide how to rule our countries. In Finland, the share of people with foreign descent is about 8%, and I understand in the United States it's like 15%. So Europe is organized as smaller countries within the European Union. The European Union is our way of organizing ourselves. It enjoys around 60 to 70% of approval rate among the population, which is pretty high. But I wouldn't, in a way, I think it's fair that within the, so to say, the family of the transatlantic relationship that we are also able to criticize each other. I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, I just hope that the strong link we have will also continue in the future, because at the end of the day, the world would look so much worse if the free world didn't exist or if it didn't hold together.
Well, I'm happy to hear you refer to us as a family, Minister, and I'd like to just zero in a little bit more closely on Finland's relationship with the United States, because your president, Stubb, I should say, has played golf with President Trump. They've talked frequently and have developed a bit of a relationship. How close are they at this point, and to what extent has that helped Finland in trying to keep the president committed to European peace?
Well, I guess it has been a very good avenue both ways in transferring ideas and messages, and of course Gulf diplomacy apparently works. At the same time, of course, Finland has very strong ties with the United States on so many levels, in trade, in technology, in science, and then of course through strong investments into defense and deterrence. But at the same time, Finland is part of the European Union, and we would hope that there was a possibility very soon in the future to really deepen our trade ties between Europe and the US. Europe has not imposed any tariffs on the United States. There's 15 on Europe. There are many things we should try and work out together. Reducing red tape is an interest on both sides, but we should do that in friendship. And at the same time, we should impose tariffs and sanctions on the true adversaries we face as the free people, and that is certainly Russia and their friends. I'm a little bit worried now, to be honest, what the next days and weeks will bring, in the sense that, of course, we, just like the Ukrainians, want to have peace as soon as possible, but not at any cost. Because certainly if this war isn't Trump's war, which it totally isn't, the peace will be Trump's peace. And I'm sure President Trump is interested in having a lasting peace. And if it's not just, then it typically wouldn't last.
Really interesting to hear you talk about that. And we'll remind our audience that Finland shares 830 miles of land border with Russia. When you talk about your worry there, is there a scenario when you consider the options of the outcome of this war that could make Finland less safe?
Well, you see, we had the NATO ministerial last week in Brussels, and within the alliance, we agreed to 100% that the largest threat that the transatlantic alliance is facing, and unfortunately for the long term, is Russia. And that means that, of course, the threat that Russia is posing is not only visible in Ukraine, but it's actually visible in the rest of Europe as well, but I should say also in the rest of the world. I mean, if people have paid attention, Russia has been organizing military coups in Africa, for instance, to cause irregular migration and, of course, suffering for the people. Russia is active in the Arctic. And doesn't shy away of partnering up with other rogue states around the world. So certainly Russia is the threat to entire world peace. I'm not so worried about Finland. We have always invested very heavily in defense and deterrence, and now that Finland, together with Sweden, we also joined NATO a couple of years ago, I think the alliance is stronger than ever, since also now Europe is really chipping in. But at the same time, I'm truly worried whether we understand that we need to deter Russia. Russia is the aggressor in this war, and to find lasting peace for Ukraine and for the rest of us, we need to be showing Russia some strength, and we need to have Russia stay within its borders.
Yes, right. Well, and to that end, you've argued that even after a peace agreement, Russia may well remain a threat, and history certainly reinforces that as Europe seeks a way to use frozen Russian central bank assets to fund the rebuilding of Ukraine. We only have a moment left, Minister. How close are we to getting an answer on that?
We are very close to finding an answer to that. We will have the meeting next week of European heads of states, and we are now quite close to finding a legally and politically sustainable solution to this. And I think using the Russian central bank's assets for funding the survival of Ukraine is not only morally, but in so many other ways also the right thing to do.